Joe Pulizzi wird als der globale Mr. Content Marketing bezeichnet. 2007 gründete er das Content Marketing Institute, das als in diesem Bereich weltweit führende Bildungsorganisation gilt und unter anderem die jährliche Konferenz Content Marketing World veranstaltet. Als Experte für Markenkommunikation hat er mehrere Bücher und Bestseller geschrieben, darunter Epic Content Marketing oder Killing Marketing. Joe Pulizzi vertritt die Meinung, dass Marketingverantwortliche ihre Kommunikationsstrategien radikal verändern müssen und nur mit Content-getriebenem Marketing erfolgreich bleiben. Seit vielen Jahren ist er mit seinen Thesen als gefragter Speaker auf internationalen Bühnen unterwegs.
The discussion Bo and Uli just had gave us a lot of homework. Can we add up to that list?
I had no idea that JD.com. I mean, I've been following the company actually for quite some time. I had no idea you were. I mean, you're going right after Amazon worldwide, and it's pretty impressive. So I know they're a partner too. So, right.
We are pretty much still in China at this point. We are China and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Somebody will be lucky about that. No, I mean, that was an amazing talk, and I think we got a lot of things to learn from that. And you started to frame, as Thorsten just mentioned, the term content marketing quite some time ago. Do you still remember how you came up with it?
Well, I've been in, whether you call it corporate publishing, custom media, that's the world that I came from. So I started in the business 20 years ago. And I was working for a media company selling corporate publishing or custom media, and we would go into chief marketing officers' offices, and we were selling the concept of custom publishing. Now, I don't know what your experience was, but when you go to a chief marketing officer and you start talking about custom publishing, they fall asleep very quickly. And we were trying, as a group, we were trying to think of how do we get marketers excited about this concept. And what I've learned over the years is that if you are going to get a marketer's attention, you have to call it something marketing, right? Social media marketing, search marketing, direct marketing has to be marketing. So I said, oh, this is easy. We'll just call it content marketing. So we started to play with that term while I was working at Penton Media, which is now part of UBM Informa. And it started to get some traction. And so when I left Penton in 2007 to start what became, of course, Content Marketing Institute, it was it was easy to say, look, this is going to be the thing. Now, by 2007 we started. By 2009, it still hadn't taken. I'm like, this is not going to work. The business wasn't doing all that well. But the recession was over in 2010 in the United States, and it just took off from there. And it was a lot of other organizations started to adopt the term, and here we are today. And like it or not, people are using the term, and I'm happy they are.
And it has gotten pretty broad, right? What's your personal definition of what would you still say is the core of content marketing? What's at the core of it?
So content marketing is a media model for non-media companies. So you're saying, okay, I want to how do I create valuable or relevant content, relevant information to a very targeted audience on a consistent basis in order to change or maintain behavior? Has to be that, right? Marketing has to change or maintain behavior in some way. So the idea is basically I'm building a media model inside a company in order to sell more products and services, or sell new products and services, or to create some awareness experience, or do something with that customer or audience base that we haven't done before. So that's kind of the content marketing 101 definition. And of course, if you follow content marketing, this is not a new thing. It's been done for hundreds of years. We've got examples going back 300-400 years, and now into today where you go into any company on the planet of any size and they're doing something, whether they know it or not, related to content marketing.
That's true. So many companies now are investing into content and content marketing, but based on your books and also publications, the chat we had last week, I know that your personal interpretation, or let's say mantra of what companies should do with corporate marketing goes far beyond most of the concepts that are executed these days.
Most organizations that are creating content, to put it nicely, are doing so as a hobby. They don't take it seriously. And so if they're trying to sell more of a product, which generally happens, okay, we're going to start doing some blogs, we're going to create some content on Twitter, we're going to do Instagram, we're going to do all kinds of stuff.
Start a YouTube channel.
Start a YouTube channel. And they try to do as much content in many different ways as possible, and then what happens in 6 months? They kill it all. It didn't work, or it's no. I have nothing against campaigns, but when you say content marketing campaign, that doesn't make any sense to me, because a campaign stops. A content marketing program does not stop. It iterates, it changes, it evolves, but it never stops. So if you look, I'll give you an example. If you look at one of my favorite cases is John Deere's The Furrow magazine. John Deere started that magazine in 1895. The change over that time is it became a digital and print publication instead of just a print publication. If you said, Joe, who's the largest media company in the agricultural industry? I would say, well, it's not a media company. It's John Deere. They reach 1.5 million farmers throughout the world. So I don't think most people think of it that way. So what we talked about last week was I'd like to see less dabbling, less of a hobby, and more of let's take a strategic approach to this, or just don't do it at all. Just go buy advertising, do traditional marketing. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to do content marketing, do it the right way.
That's what I want to ask. It sounds like a pretty exhaustive approach and very effort and resource intense what you're suggesting. So why shouldn't I just stick to my advertising model of today and continue with that?
There's no reason why you can't do that. But what we're seeing is the most innovative companies in the world and the fastest growing companies are absolutely investing in content marketing.
So you would say if I do want to drive an impact, if I do something that wirkt, as we say in German, so drives an impact, you should change your way of conducting marketing as an overall approach.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say you're not, it's not that you do either or. Content marketing is always additive to a traditional advertising approach. But what I would say is if you're going to do this, you're going to say, look, we want to actually have a direct communication with our customers. That's what was always so hard. If you go back 20 years ago, it cost a lot of money to build a media company. If you're going to build a magazine or a newsletter or a newspaper, it costs a lot of money for audience development. It doesn't cost as much today. It's still very challenging, but it doesn't cost as much as it used to. So my take is, well, do we have to just buy ads in other people's outlets, or what if we just became the media anyways? So the way I look at any company, whether Disney was brought up. Disney is a really good example of they are a media company and they're also a product and service company. They do both. Amazon is the same way. So if you go down the line, Netflix is a media company that will start to sell products and services. So every company, every big brand that you look at is both a media company and a product and service company. Some choose to do one or the other. So if I look at any media company out there, I fully expect that media company to evolve and sell products and services. I'll give you a quick example of the New York Times. I just read this. They're really going into the festival business. A big new market for them is we're going to do festivals all across North America. Did you ever think that New York Times, the newspaper, would get into the event business? Well, that's going to be a whole new revenue line for them, just like a product and service company like an Amazon gets into the media side and now has a huge media brand and prime.
I'm sure it's still surprising as media companies turn towards new business fields. I think the example you just mentioned, New York Times, we have a Hamburg-based media house which has started that also some time ago quite successfully. But let's look also at let's say brands and products that still usually get advertised mostly in a traditional way. Let's look at either CPG brands or maybe even retail brands. So brands where the business model is based upon a continuous stream of awareness, reach, talking to people in a certain way, reaching those people ongoingly in a certain way. Mm-hmm. You think for those brands, a thorough content marketing approach would be working as well as for the companies you just mentioned, like a John Deere? and others?
I think if it's done right, it can work very, very well. I mean, one of the financial case studies. I don't know if do you have TD Ameritrade here in Germany? It doesn't.
No.
They're an online broker,
Okay.
so they're trying to target traders who trade stocks and futures, and they created a magazine called Think Money Magazine. It was a print magazine. Now it's a print and digital magazine. They started it about 10 years ago, and they did a study a couple years ago, and they found out that those of their so it's sent to traders and their customers, and when they sent that, they did the research, and they found out that those customers that read Think Money Magazine trade 5 times more than those that don't. So once the chief marketing officer finds that out, they're like, we have to get this into the hands of every one of our customers, because they're not pitching TD Ameritrade products and services. They're teaching them how to trade, how to be more successful. So I think that's the difference. And I know you have P&G as a client of yours.
We do.
P&G in the States, they've been doing that for years. I remember, beanggirl.com, that they launched that, and they thought that was 4 times more effective than anything they'd done in advertising. But then a year later, they killed it, which happens all the time in big companies like that, because it's, again, seen as part of a campaign, not as building a content brand where you can grow it over time and build an asset.
You shared a very interesting concept, which I like because it seems quite radical. You're looking very much into brands not starting a new content marketing approach, let's say, like start from scratch, but rather acquire existing media businesses and then build your strategy on top of, let's say, make it part of your strategy, but build execution on top of that. Please a little bit about
Sure.
that thought, because I think for many advertisers that still seems quite radical to invest into a media business and not doing a traditional marketing approach and standard returns.
I think that the question was asked in the last presentation, where do you see going in 5 years? I think over the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot of product and service companies buying magazines, newsletters, events. So what's happening is you're having media companies that are struggling to evolve their media model outside of just selling sponsorships and advertising. So you have companies with a lot of corporate marketing dollars that are coming in saying, oh, well, what kind of an asset can we purchase? We not only purchase the brand, we purchase the audience, we purchase the rights to do whatever we want with that content. That's, I think, what's going to happen. I think that if you would have done that 10 years ago, you'd have had too many people out there saying, oh, no, that can't be. That's a biased source, and we can't have a company come in and take that over. But now we've seen so many examples of that happening, especially in the States. It's not a surprise when you see all the magazines that can't make it. They're having other companies go out and buy. So I think that's going to be a huge trend and, frankly, a huge opportunity. So as you're doing consulting with a lot of your clients, that's where I see an opportunity to say, look, I know that we're looking at a media strategy, and of course, still look at that, but I would do the same exact strategy and say, okay, well, what are the 8 or 10 media properties that we should be looking at to possibly purchase over the next 2 to 5 years?
Let's assume I did that. I invested in a media property, acquired it, and now I have this wonderful magazine or online channel, maybe even YouTube channel or multi-channel brand. What do I do with it? Do I just build on top of the audience? Do I rebrand the media brand? Do I just advertise as a cheaper price in the content? What's the success drivers after I acquire such a property?
The answer to that is yes.
Thank you.
You could do all of that. Now, it depends on what your overall goal is. Now, the first thing is that you have direct communication with that audience. That is extremely valuable. For research and development purposes on your own new products and services, that could be the reason why you're doing it. But could you sell other partners advertising and sponsorship into that vehicle, non-competitive partners, and actually make a profit off of your marketing? I mean, that's where I think in a lot of cases we're going, where could your marketing pay for itself standalone? I know it's supposed to pay for itself because you're selling products and services, but could it pay for itself? Absolutely. I mean,
we would like to shorten the cycle of how fast does it pay for itself.
Well, the thing, I mean, everyone here knows Salesforce, right? What's the arguably the number one largest revenue generating event in the United States. You could say it's South by Southwest, but you could also say it's Dreamforce. So Dreamforce sells sponsorships for $5 or $10 million standalone. They could make as much money. If they were to just say, we want to take Dreamforce, our event that we're supposed to use for marketing, and sell it, they could sell it for almost $1 billion by itself. So the value is unprecedented. Now, what are they doing with it? They're basically right now using that to not only pay for itself, but they're selling a lot more Salesforce products and services. So, and that's just one example.
Another thought that I like very much from your perspective is that basically you're saying that not only do companies not invest in the right way into content marketing, but one of the biggest mistakes you see is that companies expect, let's say, a payout 3 months after you started to invest. How much time should I take myself to wait for the results and the paying back of my investment?
So for those of you that have been into content marketing strategy sessions with clients, we always start, when I would go in, and still do, when I go in with a client, and they'll always ask that question, when should I expect results? I basically say, if you're expecting results, significant results inside 9 months, we should not do this. This is a long-term initiative. You're trying to build an asset. You're trying to build a relationship with an audience that probably doesn't know you, love you, trust you yet. That's what we're trying to get to. It's not going to happen in 2 months by you doing Snapchat or Instagram or whatever you're doing, or your YouTube channel. So I want to set the stage right away that this is going to be different than you just buying keywords on Google and trying to sell more. If you have a short-term sales goal, this is not for you. If this is long-term and you're really trying to build something that can absolutely change the industry, that's exciting to me. That's something that we can. So in all the case studies that we looked at, average takes 12 to 18 months from start to monetization, where you can actually say, oh, we can see a return, more product and service sales, better loyalty, more awareness, whatever the ultimate goal is. So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
That also gives a content marketing strategy a completely different twist, because it becomes a strategy just by the time you look at and how you should conduct it. The next question I wanted to ask is, like, if you decide for such approach, you say, okay, I'm fine to invest, let's say, a year or two into building the right properties, maybe acquiring something, find the right strategy and to build on top of it. We need to find a way not to do advertising and content, but to, let's say, weave it together in a single strategy. And now when I do that, my advertising returns I do expect next week. And now my content marketing investment I do expect 2 years later. I can do that if I balance in the right way, but how would you recommend us to bridge the time until we expect the content market? Should we just find on top money, or can we find a good strategy that brings both worlds together?
Your goal of buying advertising is much different than creating content. At least I hope it should be. Not to say that you can't create content and have it drive sales. It absolutely can. But if I'm starting a content marketing program of some kind, I start with an editorial mission statement, what we call a content marketing mission statement. What is that mission statement doing? That mission statement is not talking about the products and services that you want to sell more of. It's talking about how you're going to help that audience live a better life, get a better job, something like that. It's just like a media company would.
Sure.
So once you can figure that out, you're trying to think, okay, what are we trying to do in this industry? What are we trying to say? There's 10 different ways that you can generate revenue from that once you get to that point. So let's say that you started this content brand of some kind, targeting this audience, and you're working there, and you get a number, what we get to a minimum viable audience. We get to enough subscribers that we can monetize. Well, then you choose, what's the lowest hanging fruit? The lowest hanging fruit for monetization is always, I want to have sponsorship associated with that. I want to launch events. I want to sell subscriptions. Those are all media direct model revenue lines. The outside lines, or the non-direct, are, I'm trying to create better loyalty. I'm trying to create better yield on my products or services. Those are all measurable. So once you get to a certain point and you're sending it to, let's say, 30,000 of your customers, if you set it up right, you can measure all that, just like we did with the TD Ameritrade example, where they said, okay, here's our customer. We're creating better customers if they actually pay attention to what we have to say. So that's where you just, no, I would love to see results in 6 months. It's absolutely possible, but we just want to make sure we set expectations, because you know how quickly a marketing department can change their mind and say, oh, we're going to do something else. We're very impatient. So
that doesn't hold true for our clients.
I'm sure it's completely different in Germany. So that only happens in the United States, where we change our minds so quickly. What is interesting, though, is in the last couple of years, I've had conversations with chief marketing officers who have brought in their financial people that work on mergers and acquisitions. That's the exciting part, because as you're trying to build, because you're building a portfolio then. If you build an audience, a content brand in one market, and it works, you're going to do it in another and another and another, because they're all targeted initiatives. So you might say, okay, well, some of these make sense. We're going to build this organically. It's going to take time. It's going to take 12 to 24 months. And in another case, we're going to go and say, oh, there's 2 properties out there. We want to buy this event or this magazine or this newspaper.
Actually, that will be my last question before we open it up for the audience. So if you have a question already, think about it and phrase it. But my question would be, if that's your view on content marketing, is marketing still the right department to do content marketing?
It might not be. I always said if you leave content creation in the hands of marketers, a whole lot of things could go wrong. Though, that's why you want to bring in really good editorial talent into your marketing department. And in a lot of cases, we're seeing that. But if you lead with marketing goals, sometimes you're going to get into trouble. And that's where that battle's at, because if you get marketing in a room and the marketing has sales goals associated with it, the first thing they're going to say is, okay, that piece of content, I want you to talk about this product or service in that article. And the editor's saying, oh, no, you're not. We're not going to do that disservice to our audience. And that's the battle that you have. And you and I discussed, I'll end with this because it's a really interesting case study, a company called Arrow Electronics. So Arrow Electronics is a $25 billion company that sells electronics components and equipment. And their Fortune 119 is their number. And they said, we want to create deeper relationships with our customers. How do we do this? How do we communicate with them? And they went out and bought over 50 different media brands. So if you said, who's the largest publisher in the B2B electronics space, it's Arrow Electronics. So they own 90%. They have direct communications with 90% of their audience right now. Are they selling more products and services? Absolutely, because of that. But each one of those are profitable in and to itself. What they did is they created a separate holding company that directs that separately, so marketing doesn't have say over all of them. They basically created their own media entity. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a good temporary Band-Aid and saying this is the way we have to do it until we all understand that we're trying to do something greater outside of the products and services that we offer.
Thank you very much. I think that does add to the list of homework that we take away from this today already.